AI. Here is a pitch that we did for Gold Coast Airport on how to use AI to connect people with disabilities and perhaps the ageing population. Everyone finds it stressful to go to the airport and catch a flight and walk up those stairs and all that sort of thing. So that was quite an interesting one. This one here is using AI to estimate the age of a fish. So you can see the close-up there of a fish scale, and we use computer vision AI to estimate how old the fish is by looking at the picture under the microscope. AI in gaming, real-time gaming and using data to find out, where people are playing in the gaming clubs and where they live. Aging populations, so we've got IoT technology, that sensors that sit in the homes, and with the addition of wearables that provide some predictive tracking of whether you're at risk of having a fall. And of course, AI in social media analytics, we actually use this ourselves. We have events and we attend events and we do research, and all of that is under the banner of sentiment analysis, and we're using AI technologies for that. So when people ask me what is AI, generally what I say to them is AI is about being exponential. And so if you're not an AI company, as in Amazon, Microsoft or Google, then you need to become exponential by using AI technologies. So AI to me means leveraging AI technologies to be exponential, so to be efficient or to increase your reach. How we apply AI is typically in one of four context areas. So we apply AI to empower our employees, to engage our customers, to create efficiencies or optimize our operations, or to transform our products. So we're offering an existing product or service and we want to essentially transform that experience using AI technologies. This here is the hype curve. So what this does is this is pushed out by Gartner, and it tracks some of the AI topics. So you can see on the curve, you can see the line. So to begin with, there's an innovation trigger. At the top of the curve, there is a peak of inflated expectations. And then down the curve, there's a trough of disillusionment, and then it kind of levels out into a plateau of productivity. So what you can see there is along the bottom, the number of years for mainstream adoption. So you can see the little white circle there is less than 2 years, light blue 2 to 5, dark blue 5 to 10, and the triangle is more than 10. So you can see technologies like blockchain in the dark blue there. They're saying that is 5 to 10 years before blockchain is into mainstream adoption. And we're seeing, a lot of people talking about blockchain, a lot of activity in investment, venture capital companies, but really what we're seeing is, 5 to 10 year time period before that's actually in that plateau of productivity or mainstream adoption. And for what we like to work in, you can see some of the terms here: deep learning, deep reinforcement learning, artificial general intelligence, autonomous vehicles. Dick Lee spoke about that in our last meetup. Drones, smart dust, smart robots. We've even got, detecting pests, little insects. We're using AI to detect, pest infestations in warehouses. So before we get into the meat of what some examples of what AI is, I've got yes, I'm on the phone. Cool. Okay. So before we get into what AI is and the feast or the smorgasbord of the different abilities, we're going to ask you all to inhale and exhale. And the reason for that is it's easy to get excited about AI and all the different bells and whistles about what we can do, but we need to ask ourselves what we're trying to achieve. For the purpose of social media analytics, there's two main things that we would want to use AI for on our Twitter analytics. The first is to research, so we can essentially spin up a quick Twitter analytics solution to investigate topics and what other topics people might be talking about in relation to the topic. So here we've got 3D printing in the middle, and we can see some of the other topics that people are talking about outside of 3D printing. And the other, what we're trying to achieve is live sentiment. And you see the keyword there, live, in that during an event, we might want to monitor the sentiment so that we can see very quickly within, say, the hour, whether our sentiment starts to take a dive. And so they're two examples of what we might be trying to achieve. And it's really important that we focus on that rather than the technology. Now we will focus on the technology, and we have some abilities, AI abilities. I'm just keeping a track of the slides will be available soon. Yeah, I'll present the slides to everyone at the completion of the topic. So these are the main 5 groups of AI abilities. So we have speech, language, knowledge, search, and vision. And speech is, we'll just go back one. So vision is probably I think, the most exciting AI ability or group of abilities. And computer vision is essentially processing images or live video to make some sort of intelligent decision. So, for example, estimating the age of a fish, we have a picture of a scale and we estimate how many years old the fish is. We might have a medical, in the hospital, we have a medical photo of someone using nuclear imaging with reflux. And so we want to make essentially a diagnosis to assist the physicians. Facial recognition, video indexing, all of that stuff is quite exciting because it's very visual. But probably the most adopted AI ability or group of abilities is actually language, so natural language. So we all see the Google Home or the Amazon that we can talk to now. Well, this is all, speech recognition. This is really going mainstream now. So language is something that is not as exciting, but certainly being used in more and more these days is the AI ability, language. In what we call natural language processing, there's a technology called LUIS, L-U-I-S. And what that does is, as you're typing a sentence or as you're talking, in the background, in kind of machine language, it's breaking down what you're saying into an intent and a score. So you can see, book me a flight to Cairo. It's saying, well, he's talking about booking a flight. That's his intent. And I'm 98% sure that that's what he's talking about. So that's how language understanding works under the covers in kind of machine language. There's some other groups of AI abilities. So knowledge is a big thing where we have people being laid off from a large organisation, and that organisation loses, a lot of experience. How to capture what's in people's heads, or that knowledge, is becoming really important. There's AI technologies that can help us with that. So how do we start with AI? I guess we crawl before we walk. And so we need to have an idea of what you're trying to achieve, but also what your end goal is. And trial and error is the only way to succeed with AI. You need to start small and take some risks. And you need to essentially sift through the noise and sift through the technology and focus only on what you need. So, for example, when we look at social media analytics, the first thing we look at when we say monitor Twitter is it too much or too little? So we need to find that balance between too few or too less information or more information. So, and the only way to get through that is through trial and error and trying it a few times and finding that balance. Your data is gold, and what I'm talking about there is machine learning. So machine learning is when people say, what is AI? Well, it's actually learning, looking at your data and learning what your data is doing, and then making some predictions on that. That's what machine learning is. Power BI is something that is being used within, it's a Microsoft product. And what Power BI is essentially the face of AI. So AI doesn't always have a face, but what Power BI is a dashboard builder that really brings alive your data and your AI. So you can see here the use of a dashboard where you can customize the background image and the background colors and the tiles and the fonts and all of that sort of thing is done to put a face on your AI to make it highly visual. Power BI is starting to come out in what they call a national cloud. So what that means is people are all worried about privacy and security. So now what they're doing is allowing you to explore your data in essentially a national cloud, so that sits within your own country. And Power BI can do things like move your data, so it can refresh your data incrementally. It can put together some outstanding visuals. This is a high contrast example. So we look at sentiment analysis. You can plot the data on a chart, but you can see that this is a bit of a sci-fi high contrast dashboard. It allows you to do all of that. And it sits inside your Office 365, which means, you don't have to code everything. There's some clicks and some next, which means you can build powerful applications without having to code much. Everyone wants to interact with their mobile phones, and normally when you see a dashboard or a chart, you want to drill down. And so that is now supported in mobile phones. As you click the drill down button and actually get to a level of detail about what's happening in that chart. You can do all of that on the mobile phone with Power BI. Well, you might have noticed a poll. So we have a couple of polls today, and the first poll is where is the best place to start with AI? So if you don't mind having a crack at that, where is the best place to start with AI? And is that poll up there, Kylie? I'm not sure if that's, there we go. So where is the best place to start AI? So give that a crack and tick where you think the best place to start AI is. While you're doing that, I'll flick through, and I'm going to start on the feature presentation, which is campaign management with Twitter. Why we would want to track our Twitter analytics using AI technologies. There's a couple of reasons. Firstly, we may want to find out who are our biggest fans and also our biggest critics. And that essentially means good and bad sentiment. I'm going to switch to a video very quickly. Let's see if this works. All right, maybe not. What I'll do is I'll just go back here and I'll switch to my screen. Can you see my screen there, Kylie? Can you see the graph? Okay. So essentially what we do in Twitter analytics, so there's two reasons why we might want to use AI technologies to monitor our Twitter. What do you mean you can't reduce the volume on your computer? Oh, okay, we can see the graph, fantastic. So there's two reasons why we might want to use Twitter solution analytics. First is to do research. So here we have a chart of 3D printing. So what we might want to do with regards to the 3D printing is understand for research purposes what 3D printing is about and what some of the topics or subtopics are that people are tweeting about in regards to 3D printing. So what this does is allow us to track the topics. So here in the middle, you can see 3D printing. And in the green circles, you can see who is tweeting about that. And then in the grey topics outside of that, you can see what these subtopics are that people are talking about in regards to 3D printing. So, for example, over here we've got digital industry, additive manufacturing, all sorts of different terms. So if you're looking to do research on, what 3D printing is about, you really just need to do some analytics, and we can type in search terms, for example, sunglasses, and you can see people are talking about sunglasses. Okay, so we know that perhaps 3D printing can be used to make sunglasses, and so it's a really great way to investigate or research a topic. These other screens here, these are all aiming to give you some sort of insight about 3D printing also. Here we can see the top authors who are tweeting about 3D printing. So you've got these guys, Build 3D Printer, this guy here. So in order top to bottom, you can see what the top authors are. You can see what the top hashtags are. So we've got 3D printing, AI, IoT, emerging technologies. And you can actually see some of the tweets in here as well. You can actually see them, who posted it, when, and what they said. And on the timeline here, you can also see representation of that overview. In regards to sentiment analysis, what we can see is these charts here plot the positive or negative sentiment in regards to 3D printing. So for all the people that are tweeting about 3D printing, these are the scores. So 0 is a average score, negative sentiment is -1, positive sentiment is +1. And you can see the distribution of different tweets along that curve. You can also see relative to a time period. So I only ran this for about 24 hours yesterday, and you can see the movement of sentiment over time. This here is a measurement of sentiment analysis to essentially score the tweets with the highest impact. So in the purple, you can see the sentiment. So that is the score, if you like, of the sentiment of the Twitter text. And these other categories here are essentially based on how many favorites that tweet got or retweets and that sort of thing. So you can actually see the rating of tweets, highest to lowest, FarmBot, open source backyard robot, emerging technologies, 3D plastic gun, hype, misfires, etc. Then we have inbound and outbound tweets. So this simply for 3D printing, I followed one of these Twitter handles called 3D Print Industry. And so we're really just tracking inbound tweets for those guys. I'll show you another demo, and this one was for the health conference in Sydney last week. And for this one, we monitored our hashtag, which was, our account, which is AI Health. And you can see the count of tweets in outbound and inbound. And again, if we go through the other pages there, we can actually see the network of topics. So we can see HIC 2018, that was actually the event hashtag. And we can see what some of the other topics were that people were talking about, like, VR film, booth of screens, virtual reality, health IT. We can see an analysis of those topics there. Pivoting overview, so we could see an overview of the tweets. We could see the sentiment for that particular conference. So we ran this for about 3 days. So we can see, look at all those positive tweets over to the right there. We hardly have any negative tweets. That's great. And we can look at the impact of the tweets. We can see the rating of those tweets, highest to lowest. Okay. So essentially using AI and to analyze our social media analytics, we can see how it can be used not only for research, as in the 3D printing example, but you can see how it can be used to monitor the real-time live sentiment of a real event. I'll just see whether we've got some. Is there any way to look at the poll result there, Kylie? Sure. For the first poll. Polls. So I'll keep going. So now that you've seen, essentially that's what that video was going to do, is show you how that works. So the Twitter template spins up a complete brand or campaign solution. So a solution template means it's going to spin up a bunch of different technologies, and it's going to do so in a way that doesn't require you to code anything. And what it does, it pulls the Twitter data back based on your search terms and your handles, and it analyzes and enriches the data using machine learning and sentiment analysis. So let's put yourself in the shoes of an event manager. So you've spent the last few months planning a conference, and you've organised speakers and catering and venues and all the rest of it, and it's now a week before the event, and you want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So you want to make sure that that everything that you planned goes according to plan, that people love the conference, and you want to respond to negative sentiment immediately. You also might want to recognise which topics relating to your event hashtags are trending. So and you can see for the duration of your event, you can see who your biggest fans are and also critics. As an event manager, you might want to look at how much the Twitter template costs. There is a bunch of analytics tools for Twitter that kind of do the same thing, but they're not very customizable. So this is the best way to really get into a highly customized and detailed solution. But it's all based on your Azure consumption. So typically, processing around 10,000 tweets will cost about $60. And so if your event isn't that big and less than 10,000 tweets, that's actually pretty good. If you're monitoring something quite large, 100,000 tweets, it's going to cost about $235. Okay. And so, yes, if you essentially track the wrong things, it could cost you the same price as a Maserati. So, but typically, in a normal situation, you find it's as an event manager who's managing an event that might be in the order of a couple of $100,000 worth of total revenue. Spending up to $200 monitoring the event is actually not that expensive for what you get. There are other ways, as I mentioned, to analyze Twitter data. I'm going to just pop off to a web page here, and this is just one of the ones I found, and it's top 5 tools for downloading and analyzing Twitter data. So the first one there is Twitter's official download. You can actually go to Twitter and go and get that directly from Twitter. There's some third-party applications, Birdsong Analytics, Sife, Node Excel. There's lots of these things around, and they all kind of do different things, but essentially there's lots of choice when it comes to monitoring your Twitter analytics. I'll talk quickly about structured and unstructured data. What I want to talk about there is only a very small part of the Twitter information. Essentially, it's the text of the tweet itself is what when we refer to unstructured data, that's what we're sending to the sentiment API and machine learning. The rest of the data is actually quite structured, and so it's about the identity of the tweeter, their Twitter handle, the time of day and the time zone and the location, and that sort of thing. So one way of dealing with passing the text in the tweet is to essentially use programming languages like Python that can recognize blocks of code and look for patterns. So we can look at things like keyword analysis, or we can analyze the sentiment by developing a sentiment score. And so these programming technologies like Python, and I hope you're all doing Python, because that's a great way to analyze a block of text for high value analytics. I will just skip to another web page that I found, and what I wanted to show you there is where to get Twitter data for academic research. So we can retrieve Twitter data through their public API, and that's essentially what we're doing with the solution I showed you today. We're using an Azure solution template that's actually talking to the Twitter API. But you can actually also obtain Twitter data in a number of other ways. So you can find an existing Twitter data set or someone else's data set. We can even purchase data from Twitter, so we don't have to do our own monitoring. We can go to Twitter and actually purchase data, or we can actually purchase data from a Twitter service provider. So for academic research, you don't have to roll your own code. You may find that what you're looking for, say for research purposes, you might be able to actually buy that Twitter data from someone. But for purpose of actually monitoring your event and your tags, your specific tags for your event, that's really about time and place and something very personal, and that's something you're likely to not find or not be able to buy from someone else. Okay, and we just went through that. Okay, so the solution template for Twitter is kind of like an IT-driven template. So it doesn't require you to know any code, but it does need you to have an Azure subscription. So typically, you'll need someone who has the keys to the closet, and that Azure subscription, it asks you for your Azure subscription, and it spins up a database and a number of different resources. It needs a login, and so you typically find that it's whilst it's a business-focused analytics solution, it needs someone from IT to kind of turn it on for you. Okay. All right. Get it. So how do we get the Twitter solution template for building our own analytics solution? So we pretty much need to Google these words: campaign brand management for Twitter. It'll typically get you to this page. So AppSource is a Microsoft, a free Microsoft website, and here you can see Get Now is actually is what you want to do to essentially go and grab and build your own solution. And here's the same screenshots you would have just seen. So it gives you some preview of what you get. Now, if we click on Test Drive, what that's going to do is ask you to log in, and it's going to give you a sample Twitter solution based on the Microsoft data. This is what you get. So this will actually spin up a Power BI page and allow you to interact with the data as if it was your own. So let's just navigate through the pages like so. You can see it's just a little bit slow because it's waiting on my internet connection. But what this is some sample data, so you can see what a typical solution might look like. Here's our network graph here. Wow, look at all that. So this one's quite a lot of information in there. So you can see the central topic there that they've chosen is Power BI. And you can see how that works. So it gives you an opportunity to go and actually play with it and see how it works. But if we want to actually go and get it, we click Get It Now. And what this does is it spins up what we call a solution template or a wizard. And it asks you a couple of questions about what you're trying to monitor. So we're looking to what are we trying to achieve essentially. So get started, and you can see down the menu here, there's the steps that it's going to guide you through from getting started, logging in, etc. So we click next, and I mentioned that you need to connect to your Azure account. So you need to have an Azure subscription. So anyone that's a student generally gets a free Azure subscription or a trial, and they get some credits. But if you're using this for business, generally you need to have an account that's attached to a credit card. I'm going to log into my demonstration tenant, and then I'm going to say connect. There we go. You log in using your Microsoft account. Permissions requested, accept. And once I've gone through this one, hopefully we're good, successfully validated. Select your subscription. So I've got a free one and a pay-as-you-go. Click next. This next one here, you can see the steps that we're traveling down top to bottom. This next one is going to ask us about cognitive APIs. So these are the AI abilities. And it's just little circles going around there. It'll come back in a sec. Okay, so what this says is this solution template deploys the text analytics API, or that's the ability to carry out sentiment analysis. And what it's saying is you need to tick yes, because what that does is it generates some costs. So you need to check that. And here you set up a database. So if I just pop back into our presentation, and I'm going to ask you another question. Right. And And the question was, do you need a database? So if we might want to run through a poll there, and essentially going to ask you, why do you need a database? So we'll pop back into the essentially the setup, and what this needs us to do is actually set up a database in the cloud. So this can be whatever you want it to be, Twitter user, and confirm password. So as part of the solution, it's setting up a database where it's going to store all of your analytics, and in the poll, we're asking, why do you need a database? So we're saying new instance or an existing instance. So you can choose an existing one if you've set this up before, and you can click validate, which actually tests that this is a proper connection. So this is setting up your brand new database. So you can see this is all happening in the web browser. So we're using no tools. It's all happening in the web browser to set up a complete Twitter analytics solution using no code. Okay. So that is just talking to the Azure account, and in a sec it's going to come back and say validated, and we're going to go to the next step. Could be my connection, or it could be the cloud. It's likely to be my connection. So what it does then is the next step is to ask us for our Twitter account. Now, it doesn't matter what Twitter account you log in as. What's important is the search terms that you specify. So the search terms in the example that we provided today, 3D printing, that's the search term. So those search terms are what appears in the network diagram here. So the grey nodes are the search terms, and the central, the search terms that we look for, or I looked for last night, was 3D printing. So you can see that central search term there. So that's essentially what we're tracking as the root search terms, as opposed to all of the sub-terms that are appearing in the other grey nodes. Should a student be concerned about using these tools if they generate background costs? Absolutely. You can, Microsoft provide free services. However, they need you to provide your credit card. You can't create an Azure account without a credit card. So, but you can put a cap on those costs, so you get your free subscription, and when that runs out, it won't charge your credit card. You have to basically say, yes, I want to be charged. So if you get any free subscription for Microsoft, they do prompt you when it starts to cost. But you still need to provide a credit card, which is kind of annoying. What will happen if the user types a misspelling in the search term? Well, interestingly, that's what we did for the HIC event, was that I asked them what was the proper search terms to look for. So we looked for HIC 2018. That's the one that I actually typed in. But as a matter of fact, the official tag was actually HIC 18, this one. So even though I typed the incorrect or the unofficial event tag, it still came up in the related tweets by coincidence. But as it turned out, most of the people at the conference didn't actually tweet the official tag anyway. They all mostly tagged HIC 2018, which is luckily the one that I chose. And we also did another one, which was somewhere over here, Leap in Health. That was the other one that we tracked. So yeah, if you do the wrong search terms, you can always go back and customize it. So you can either you can throw it in the bin and start again, or you can actually go back into the Python code in Azure and actually modify the search terms, and that'll change in real time. So if I just flip back to here, an error has occurred. Oh dear. All right. So let me just say test. Okay, check availability. Okay, so it'll say if that database server is already taken, it'll say sorry. So test AI Australia. Oh yeah, I've been answering those. Yep. I'll just see if there's any other questions in there. Is there a freeware version of Power BI with powerful analysis? Yes, Power BI is free to install and free to use. It's absolutely free, and it doesn't need you to enter a credit card. So if we just type Power BI in the browser there. Oops, Power BI. So the Power BI website has a link to the free download, and powerbi.microsoft.com. And you just say sign up for free, and then you can download Power BI, and that's what I'm running here. Power BI desktop running on Windows. Unfortunately, it doesn't run on Mac yet. It might at some point. What other questions have we got there? Can this be applied to other social media channels or just Twitter? Yeah, absolutely. So there is actually another solution template for Facebook, and it works exactly the same. It asks you, there's essentially a wizard, and it asks you exactly the same questions, but it spins up a different solution, which means it's going to go and deploy another database and another set of cognitive services and another solution in Azure, but it works exactly the same. I think my internet's a bit poisonous today, but yes. So there we go, announcing the campaign solution for Facebook. So if we check that one out, that one is the same technology, same type of concept. It's called a Power BI solution template, and this one is designed for Facebook. So instead of asking for your Twitter account, it's going to ask for your Facebook account instead. There isn't one for Instagram. So this is the Facebook analytics. So same thing, get it now. Test drive means you can go and look at it. You can see the screenshots there of how that works. So there isn't one for Instagram yet, but you could go and build your own, basically. And same as things like Flickr. Flickr has an API, and you can code your own solution for Flickr using your own code. Okay. Okay. Can a local firm use this technology to promote their business? Absolutely. So you could, for example, like what I've done here for the 3D printing example, you could just run the analytics for 24 hours and save that and stop it so you don't get charged, and then kill it all, delete it all, but you've got it saved here inside your Power BI report, and then you just need to publish it. So once you've published it, you can actually then essentially expose that or embed that inside your web page and have allow people to interact with it for free. It's exactly what Microsoft are doing here when they say test drive, is they're using an embedded Power BI report. Continue. You could do the same thing in your own web page. So here it's loading up an embedded Power BI report that's kind of disconnected from the data. So all of the analysis has been done and it's all been turned off, but you've still got this pot of data that you can embed inside your web pages. So this is just loading up. So this will give you a flavour for how you could possibly use that to promote your business. Can I give you a hint for the difference between Power BI and Tableau? Power BI and Tableau are both what I call data visualization tools. So they both install on your desktop and allow you to do powerful analysis. Power BI runs on Windows, but Tableau runs on the Apple Mac and Windows. Both of them do stunning visualizations, although Power BI has a much bigger ecosystem of visuals. Here you can see we can import a visual from the marketplace, and we can go and search for hundreds of different visualizations. Tableau's only really got, a handful of visuals, but also the ecosystem around Power BI, as in what we've seen today, is we've been able to create a Power BI solution that has used Azure cognitive services to analyze our sentiment. So that whole ecosystem around Power BI is a key differentiator that Tableau doesn't really have. But as far as visualization goes, both of them are great tools for visualizing your data. You can build your own solution template that accesses someone else's API. We just pop back to our demo. What languages would you use to code your own solution to these other social media sites? So typically you'll use, I'll just jump back into the presentation here. You use logic apps. So what this solution template's actually building, it's building you a database, but it's also building you essentially some code modules. It's building a logic app that pulls the data from Twitter. So the logic app is essentially a program, and it allows you to put your own code inside that. And so you'd use Python typically, and the solution template that this one deploys it's a logic app, but it's actually using a Python code to talk to the Twitter API and monitor your words. So definitely brush up on the Python. It's really going crazy right now. So the logic app passes a tweet into the Azure, an Azure function, and then the Azure function actually adds data to the tweet, like the sentiment score, and writes it to the database. And then what Power BI does, it picks up all of the data from the database and it renders it inside the report. It uses security called OAuth to sign into your Azure account, and it uses an Azure database. So it uses OAuth to sign into your Twitter account. So it uses needs a Twitter account to sign into. Search terms, you input your search terms, and these are the terms that are used by the Logic app to pull the tweets from Twitter. So you specifically have to say which search terms to use, otherwise you're not going to get the right information back. Twitter handles, so these are specific user accounts that you'd like to monitor. So if it's your own Twitter handle, you might want to monitor that. But if you have a key influencer, say, someone else, you can monitor someone else's account as well and see what inbound and outbound tweets are happening on those accounts. Azure resources, I mentioned that when you spin up this solution, you actually spin up a bunch of resources in Azure. So you can see here the typical types of resources that the solution template spins up. We've got a Logic app, we've got a SQL server, a database, there's a storage account, there's an API connection, and a couple of app services. These are all resources that are deployed in Azure, and you can actually see that's what they look like. And here is just a breakdown of what a Logic app is. So Logic app is essentially a service for building a solution. So what a Logic app looks like, if you look over to the right here, is it's all drag and drop. So you say when a new tweet appears, this is a codeless module, and you stick in your text and you tell it how what the frequency is that you want to go and search for that text on Twitter. So every minute, every 3 minutes. And then after it does that, you want to send that to this body of code. And this is where you drop your Python code in to go and do your sentiment analysis. So this is what a Logic app looks like. It's very visual, easy to build, but it's also powerful enough you can actually drop in your Python code. And this is what typical Python code looks like. All right, so we're about on the money there in terms of it's 1 minute past 1. So if there's any other questions, we will. I'm happy to answer them now. I'll make this presentation available for all that attended, and here you can actually see the inside the Twitter database that gets deployed. You can see all the tables that get deployed as well. That's an Azure SQL database. And I mentioned the Twitter template for Facebook is available as well, but also you can build your own solution template. So if you want to build one for, say, Instagram or Flickr, you just need to follow their rules. So for Instagram, you need to have a Instagram business account first, and then basically you need to follow the rules in their API reference. Flickr has their own API reference as well. You've got some volume limitations for how many requests you can send to the API. So I think for Flickr, it's something like 1,000 requests per minute limit or something like that. They don't like you monitoring through screen scrapers. So a Logic app is fine because it's a timer. It's a proper program that's reading from the API, but you can't do a screen scrape technology. They don't like doing that, and they'll monitor for screen scrape applications and shut them down. So all the policies for each are quite different, but generally you can build your own for whatever you like. If you have any questions, there is my email address. I'm always happy to answer questions on AI or sentiment analysis and computer vision, whatever they might be. So if there's any other questions, feel free to email me there. And I think that is a wrap. We just go back to my polls, because I don't think the polls work today, but the answers are in the deck. Why do you need a database? Well, you need scalability, enterprise features like data masking. You might have some complex security requirements or data encryption requirements or auditing. This is why you need a database. All highly security and scalability essentially. And the question about where is the best place to start AI, some of the answers there, frequently asked questions, bots or pages, site FAQ. You might want to, anything that's involving reducing your costs is really great, increasing revenues. Late payments, this is a great way to use AI, chase up late payments by using a bot rather than a real person. No one wants to talk to a real person about essentially a failed credit card payment. And of course, sentiment analysis. This is a great way to start using AI technologies for an immediate and useful benefit. So thank you, everyone. I will conclude now, and I'll provide the presentation notes after the presentation. Yeah, material will be made available through download. Cool.